Alright, we're live. Hello everyone, this is Matendo here, and today we are doing a bit of a stream today. So yeah, it's been quite some months, but we're finally gonna be doing as a celebration for SpongeBob's 25th anniversary. We'll be recapping every single episode. Um, there has we're going to be recapping every single episode that that has aired in SpongeBob's history, and as though so yeah, we're gonna be recapping every episode. We're gonna be recapping certain things. Now this is gonna be a different stream because now I'm using my mother's computer because my computer just kinda got fried up, and so I was originally gonna do a test, but then it didn't really work out, so I decided to just do this, where I just go to the Wikipedia here and check out episodes by episodes to see how I am going to recap them. So yeah, so that's basically gonna be the stream. So I was thinking that today is probably gonna be I'm just gonna do like a session 1 and session 2 and session 3 because I don't think I'm gonna have too much to do. I think I'm just gonna I don't think I'm gonna have too much to do here, and it's just gonna be me seeing. So if anyone, I don't think anyone is in the stream, but I think my voice is clear now. Once the stream is over, I will check to see if there's anything. I'll check if my voice is heard, that the stream was well done, and if it's if things are working out properly here. So yeah, either way, let's get started. So in recapping SpongeBob today, we're gonna do only session 1. Where like tomorrow we'll continue, and then maybe the day after that, at least before July 10, because I will be out of the city. So yeah, well, let's get started with season 1, episode 1A, Help Wanted. SpongeBob applies for a job with the Trusty Trap. It was aired on the US in May 1, 1999, and has gained viewership of 2.96 millions on the US. Bear in mind, I don't live in the US, so but that's what the article is saying, because that's because SpongeBob is American, so but so basically, in my journey of celebrating 25th anniversary, I will be recapping everything, and here we start with Help Wanted. So SpongeBob applies for a job at the Trusty Trap. So this is such an iconic episode. We see SpongeBob, things opening up with SpongeBob and his pineapple, but being ready for work. It's pretty charming. With the anchovies. We have the anchovies here, and the meep 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 meep, and then SpongeBob comes in with these super spatula that creates burgers, and we get the sun, the Tiny Tim live in the sunlight, living in the sunlight, living in the moonlight sun, which is really iconic. So yeah, this is really iconic. Definitely put a high note for the show as we know it. So yeah. Basically, in my recapping of episodes, we're going to recap every episodes from season 1 till the present, and we'll recap Tim Total and the Patrick Star Show, where we've left off in both spin-offs, and we'll also be recapping the movies. I would say, and I think that's all what we have to recap, and if we do another new episodes coming out this month in July, so I might talk about them, make a video on them once I get to see them. So yeah, quick recap, Reef Blower. So in this episode, SpongeBob attempts to remove a shell off his lawn with a reef blower. This episode also aired on May 1, 1999. So yeah, this episode is, it's pretty iconic as well with the leaf blower. It has no dialogue. There's that you segment that was really funny. This episode has no dialogue. It's like a very short episode, 4 minutes, and we get to see SpongeBob and toying around with Squidward, and the whole there's like this shell that he's trying to remove, and he uses the leaf blower and whatnot. So yeah, that was really cool. Next we got Tea at the Treedom. In this episode, SpongeBob meets Sandy Cheeks and struggles to breathe in her treedom. So this is the debut episode of Sandy Cheeks, and for the debut episode, it was really iconic, and we did to do in his treedom, and he struggles to breathe because Sandy's a land creature, she breathes air, and SpongeBob breathes water, and to not breathe air, he dies to air. So it was interesting, it was interesting. It did sometimes a bit torturous to SpongeBob, but it's still interesting to see the air, how it affects, and all that stuff. So Tia the Freedom is a really iconic episode. So next we got is Bubble Stand. SpongeBob starts a bubble stand. Yeah, that's the plot here. Aired on July 17, 1999. So there's like a 2 month gap, I guess, between like the first between the first episode and the second episode. Yeah, there's like a 2 months kind of part. So Bubble Stand, this episode, we know SpongeBob makes his bubble stand. Squidward, also comes in, tries to blow a bubble, and I taunt it, and SpongeBob's methods of blowing bubble. The episode. I taunt it. Next without his ripped pants, aired on July 17, 1999. SpongeBob jokes about ripping his pants. So basically, this episode starts with SpongeBob, having his, trying to lift some weights, even though it's just it was a tree branch with 2 marshmallows in there, and to him that's very heavy, but whatever. Anyway, when he tries to lift it, we get to see him accidentally breaking his pants. He accidentally breaks his pants in the episode, and we do know how the episode also. That's where we get to see. We get to see basically that like he overplays the joke. Well, in this episode, he pretty much overplays the joke, and to the point where everyone gets annoyed by it, and it starts becoming annoying and all that. And it's and it's pretty funny, as well as we get to see it ends on SpongeBob having a music, like he sings about it, which is really cool. When he loses his friends, and he does that. So really iconic episode. Next we got is episode 3A, Jellyfishing, aired on July 31, 1999. SpongeBob and Patrick take Squidward jellyfishing. So yeah, this episode, we get introduced to SpongeBob and Patrick's one of SpongeBob and Patrick's favorite hobby, and that's jellyfishing. So basically, they get stunned by jellyfish, and when Squidward falls off a cliff and he gets injured, SpongeBob and Patrick they show him off how to catch a jelly. They show him off. They try to please with him. And then SpongeBob and Patrick try to decide to take him jellyfishing, and then we got the iconic hold it firmly grasp it scene, which is a little it's a little nastier, but hey it's it's iconic as well. So yeah, and Screwed that's stunned by the big jellyfish, which this episode does have a lot of pain in it, but for what it's time, it was charming enough. So next we got is the episode 3V, Plankton, aired on July 31, 1999. So in this episode, SpongeBob is introduced to Mr. Krabs' business rival, Plankton, or in full name, Sheldon J. Plankton. So in this episode, this is the debut episode of Plankton, an iconic character of SpongeBob. He's the main villain. And we know the shit of him trying to steal the formula in like every season of SpongeBob. There's like there's like a couple episodes with him trying to steal the formula and whatnot. But here, for his first appearance, it was really iconic, and seeing him, how he takes over SpongeBob's mind. And for his first appearance, like one of my favorite jokes in this episode is definitely the joke of, is when Plankton has like this tape, it's like this tape, has like this on the horn, and when he tries to play the evil laugh, he plays, let's learn A B C. Let's all learn the alphabet A B C. Yeah, that scene, that was a really funny joke there. Like Plankton trying to take over SpongeBob, and instead of playing his evil soundtrack, he plays "Let's all learn the alphabet A B C." Yeah, that's to me was a really funny joke. And seeing Plankton take over, SpongeBob's mind and trying to taking the telepathy and analyzing it. And he was kind of quite close in achieving it, but he falls instead, and we got the iconic Plankton, 99% hard das, 1% evil, 99% hard das. So yeah. So that really iconic episode. So yeah. Episode 4A, Naughty Naughty 10 Neighbors. So in this episode, Strudel destroys SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship. This episode premiered on August 7, 1999. So, yeah, basically this episode is Strudel being annoyed of SpongeBob and Patrick's antics, and the way he resolves it is that he tries to ruin their friendship by when they speak to each other with bubbles. Strudel makes this like with his C, he makes this like bubble soap of him, and he says bad things to SpongeBob and Patrick to the point where their friendship gets ruined. But then the episode plays out as Strudel is happy that their friendship is ruined, but then once they become fighting over it over and over and over, Strudel gets annoyed and he has to build their friendship together, and he ends up doing that with a bunch of soda. So yeah. So yeah, that was charming. So next episode is episode 4B, Boat in School, aired on August 7, 1999. So in this episode, Patrick attempts to help SpongeBob pass his driving exam. So yeah, this episode basically, this is our first boating school episode. This is an episode that introduced to SpongeBob driving, and as we know, SpongeBob doesn't have his driver's license. He always goes to Mrs. Puff, tries to get it. We did a bunch of these boating school episodes where SpongeBob goes to Mrs. Puff, he tries to do his boating school license to get it, he fails and doesn't know how to do it, and it's still ongoing to this day. And Mrs. Puff, always kinda comes up with certain plans, certain schemes, and sometimes they backfire, sometimes they don't. So yeah. So in this episode, basically SpongeBob tries to pass it, and he tries to kinda cheat, where like Patrick kinda attempts to help him by having a conch in his head where Patrick tells him what to do, how to drive and whatnot. So basically, this is a pretty iconic episode here where Patrick attempts to help him, and SpongeBob ends up just kinda screwing things over. When he sees that Mrs. Puff, this is like cheating, and he kinda confesses and kinda, and it doesn't pass in the end. So, that was unfortunate, but hey, that it's really, it was an iconic episode nonetheless that started. So yeah. Next without is episode 5A, Pizza Delivery. This one has a lot to talk about. So it aired on August 14, 1999. SpongeBob and Strudel delivered a pizza. So in this episode, pizza, the Trasitra pizza, yeah. And you and me. Yeah, SpongeBob and Patrick, they go on this journey to deliver a pizza. After SpongeBob and Squidward, they lose the Thor. Did I say Patrick? No, it's Squidward, yeah. SpongeBob and Squidward, after they lose the Thor, SpongeBob basically, SpongeBob and Squidward have to walk there, and the episode plays it out, like a journey, like a journey. Like a journey, and they try to take this pizza to the customer. They try to get this pizza to the customer, and they kind of do, but they did try it up sometimes, and Scripted argues and wants to eat the pizza, but because he doesn't care about the customer. And then SpongeBob finds the boulder, and they go, and with the boulder they did there, and the customer is all angry because he didn't have a drink even though he didn't order for it, and Scripted stands up for SpongeBob. So yeah. And splashes the pizza at the customer's face. So yeah. So yeah, that's the episode, and yeah, memorable. Number 5B, Home Sweet Pineapple, aired on August 14, 1999. SpongeBob's pineapple is consumed by nematodes. So in this episode, it starts with SpongeBob's pineapple being consumed by nematodes. His pineapple gets consumed by nematodes. There's a bunch of these nematodes that come in and they consume his pineapple and whatnot. And SpongeBob, doesn't have any place to live. And it turns out, he and Patty try to build a home, but it backfires. It's like very small and backfires. And then he tries to sleep with Patrick, but Patrick is annoying and tries to hit him. And he hits him and he crushes him a lot, thinking that he's a spider with his rod. He crushes him with his rod, thinking that he's a spider. And he does to Strudel, but Strudel hits him outside, and then his parents come home, and Strudel is happy that SpongeBob is done, until he plants a seed and that throws a pineapple, and the pineapple, and SpongeBob's home is finally restored. So yeah, that's Home Sweet Pineapple. Really, really fun episode. Anyway, how long have I been streaming so far? It's been 20 minutes. Okay, I think that if this stream that's too long, I did something I have to let's see. I might just do only the first season because I don't know if this stream that's too long. Then I don't really know what to say. I might just do season 1. I'm just thinking that the limit is 1 hour. Yeah, the stream is gonna be short. My mother may come back and stuff, so I'm only doing like a quick stream. So I'm thinking I'll just do season 1 today. Maybe every like session I do one season. Yeah, I think it's nice to do like one season every session, And maybe once we get to season 3, we'll also review the movies. So yeah, let's do that. Each season, we'll do like a stream session every season. So yeah, for every season. So next up we got is episode 6A, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, which aired on August 21, 1999. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick tried to convince their heroes to come out of retirement. So yeah, we got the iconic Merman and Barnacle Boy superheroes. They first appeared in this episode, and we first get introduced to them. But they're retired, they're old, and SpongeBob tried to get them out of retirement. They try with several ways, of them dressing up as, Patrick dressing up as a criminal, and like sneaking into the Shady Shoals, the retirement home, and like sneaking into the Shady Shoals retirement home and trying to get them out, or SpongeBob disguising as a lady, and Patrick is a criminal who robs her purse so that Merman and Barnacle Boy can go inside and stop them. And then Merman and Barnacle Boy they go out of retirement, but then they assume that SpongeBob and Patrick themselves are villains, and they summon. And then we get this action scene where they summon they basically summon a bunch of old people to just spit SpongeBob and Patrick and throw them off. So yeah, and we got really cool soundtracks, with them really cool soundtrack. Dun dun dun, bum, ba, dum, ba. Yeah, the iconic soundtrack that like happens whenever there's action. Whenever there's action, so yeah. Um, so yeah, this was a really like fun introduction of my mother's tongue. So it's a fun introduction to yeah, we're back. Yeah, where are we? So Merman Motor Boy, iconic episode. Next we go to 6B, Petals. So in this episode, SpongeBob loses his confidence after forgetting to put the petals on a tray patty. So this episode aired on August 21, 1999. And so this episode is to be introduced to the iconic character Bubble Bass. And Bubble Bass, he's, an iconic character. He builds up, he's like this food treated, but then Bubble Bass, criticizes SpongeBob for not putting the petals apparently, and so SpongeBob, that's SpongeBob, that's he loses his confidence. He doesn't know how to try patties anymore, and he goes back home. But then Mr. Krabs comes and rebuilds SpongeBob's confidence, and then SpongeBob is able to face Bulbasaur, and it turns out that Bulbasaur has been hiding petals under his tongue. So yeah, this was a really fun episode, and definitely set the bar for Bubble Bass as a character. Next we go to episode 7A, Hall Monitor, aired on August 28, 1999. So in this episode, SpongeBob takes his role as the Hall Monitor of Mrs. Puff's boating school 2-4. So basically, in this episode, Mrs. Puff makes SpongeBob a Hall Monitor, and he basically just, kinda goes on a rampage, destroying the city, and he takes it too far by kinda being a maniac, destroying the city, and he tries to find this maniac when it's Tana himself, which is, kinda ironic. And then there's this joke about Patrick Hills with ice cream, and then these two cops show up, and they're like, "Have you seen the Maniac?" Which is basically SpongeBob, and SpongeBob runs away, destroying Teeny Bottom. Even though in the end, even though despite SpongeBob being labeled the Maniac, Mrs. Puff is the one who gets arrested because she said that SpongeBob is her responsibility. So it led to her arrest instead. So you know. But this one, it led to her arrest instead, but I guess SpongeBob still learned its lesson in the end, so. Next up is 7B Jellyfish Jam, aired on August 28, 1999. SpongeBob brings home a jellyfish, creating chaos. So basically, in this episode, SpongeBob befriends a jellyfish, he brings it home, they dance together all the night, but then when SpongeBob is sleeping, the jellyfish come in and they just cannot. This jellyfish summons its fellow jellyfishes, and they come in, they dance, they make chaos, and SpongeBob tries to get them out, but then he cannot. They've taken over the house, and basically, he tries to have Squidward, but they sting him, and so SpongeBob, uses the iconic, the soundtrack, and a nice melody to get them outside, which is really cool, and yeah, that's how the episode ends. So instead we got 8A, Sandy's Rocket. premiered on September 17, 1999. So in this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick sneak onto Sandy's rocket ship. So in this episode, basically Sandy has this rocket. SpongeBob and Patrick, they go to this rocket. They sneak into this, and they launch this rocket up themselves, and they go down back to Bikini Bottom, but they aren't aware that it's Bikini Bottom. They think that it's the moon, so they go on capturing, the Bikini Bottomites, capturing, Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob's boss, Mr. Krabs. I haven't introduced much of the characters yet, but the characters: SpongeBob, Patrick, Mr. Krabs, Squidward. You know them. Anyway, anyway, sorry about the noise for that noise. Anyway, um, I was here. Anyway, uh, anyway, next is so yeah. Anyway, so anyway, they think that it's the moon, and they capture them using the guns, and then they capture everyone, put them on the ship, put them on the rocket ship, and and then when Sally comes in, they capture her, and SpongeBob goes to the moon, only realizing that everyone is just their friends from Bikini Bottom, which funny, I guess. Alright, next is 8B, Streaky Boots, premiered on September 17, 1999. So in this episode, SpongeBob buys boots from Mr. Krabs, which causes an annoying squeaky sound. So basically, Mr. Krabs has these boots, he had them for Pearl, but then Pearl refused them. And so Mr. Krabs gives them to SpongeBob, he sells them to SpongeBob, but then SpongeBob makes, so much annoying noises that drive Mr. Krabs like insane and crazy and all that. So he tries to get rid of these boots by sneaking to SpongeBob's home and hiding them. But then when SpongeBob gets all sad and miserable when he loses them, Mr. Krabs admits that he has hidden them, and he fries them, and he kinda eats them. But then SpongeBob is okay with that, once he finds out the truth. But just when Mr. Krabs gives him some money, and Mr. Krabs, while partying with Pearl, he just ends up with this squeaky noise instead. So this is basically me giving an initial summary here. So yeah, next is 9A, Nature Pants, aired on September 11, 1999. In this episode, SpongeBob lives a modern life to live with a jellyfish. So in this episode, basically, SpongeBob lives in the SpongeBob in the Trusty Trap, he dreams about living in jellyfish. So basically becomes naked and goes with the jellyfish because he thinks he's one. But then, the jellyfish, they kind of sting him, and then there's this moment where Patrick tries to touch SpongeBob, thinking that, after proclaiming that he's a jellyfish, but then Patrick goes away, and SpongeBob just, is all alone. And after realizing that nature isn't his life, he just goes back home, and and happy with his friends. So that's his 9B, Opposite Day, aired on September 11, 1999. So in this episode, Scrooge tells SpongeBob and Patrick that it is Opposite Day. So basically, Scrooge, makes this whole Opposite Day about everyone acting opposites, and so SpongeBob and Patrick kind of act more like Squidward, where Squidward, acts kind of like Patrick, and basically. So yeah, this is an attempt because Struder tries to sell his home to someone, and an attempt to see that Struder tries to sell his home to the real estate owner, and so that the real estate owner doesn't know that Struder has annoying neighbors. He basically tries to do this opposite day thing where he intends SpongeBob and Patrick to be calm while the real estate owner comes in. The real estate owner fish, she comes in and checks the house. But basically, when Strudel gets occupied by building SpongeBob's house, SpongeBob and Patrick just come to the real estate owner, and they talk with her. But then she gets confused with whom Strudel, and Strudel shows up, and then she just decides to sell. She refuses to sell the house, or she refuses to buy the house. So she's the one who's buying. Yeah, Strudel is the one who's selling. Yeah. So yeah, and Scrooge just chases SpongeBob and Patrick out of anger for refusing to, for selling his house. So yeah. Next is 10A Culture Shot, aired on September 18, 1999. So in this episode, Scrooge hosts a talent show, The Trusty Trap. So this episode is, Scrooge, he wants a talent show, The Trusty Trap. It earns Mr. Trap's money, and he does it, with various SpongeBob characters such as, Daddy having scenes, Daddy waiting and Meow singing, Pearl dancing, Plankton doing some magic, trying to steal the formula for a bit, and stuff like that. And then Scrooge tries to present his talent show by dancing, but then everyone boos at him, and then they like SpongeBob by just cleaning up. So yeah, really funny. So next is FUN, fun, whatever you want to pronounce it. Aired on September 18, 1999. So SpongeBob befriends Plankton because he thinks he is lonely. So in this episode, basically, Plankton is lonely, after stealing the formula once again, trying to steal the formula once again. SpongeBob thinks that Plankton is alone and has no friends, so SpongeBob tries to befriend him, and they do this whole song and dance of, F is for friends who do stuff together, U is for you and me, N is for anywhere, anytime, and all, not here in the deep blue sea. Yeah, what an iconic song. Anyway, so yeah, this episode is really iconic. SpongeBob sings with him, and Plankton, becomes his friend, and SpongeBob believes it. But then in the end, turns out Plankton is just trying to steal the formula, as always. So but still, SpongeBob and Plankton befriending for the first time in the show. Next up is 11A Muscle Bob Buff Pants, aired on October 2, 1999. So in this episode, SpongeBob orders fake arms with inflatable muscles to impress Sandy. So basically, after realizing that he's weak, SpongeBob tries to impress Sandy by having, a bunch of fake arms. By ordering a bunch of fake arms that are inflatable. And he tries to impress everyone in the beach and whatnot, but then when it goes to swinging antlers, SpongeBob fails to swing the antler, and his muscles pop up. So and then Sandy just has him pushing buttons on the remote. So yeah, iconic episode. Next is 11B. Yeah, I keep on saying iconic episode, but like I just don't have anything else to say. This is just me. This isn't me reviewing the episodes, it's just me recapping. It's just me like making a summary of the episodes. This is just me making a summary of the episodes. This isn't me reviewing or rating these episodes or saying, oh, this episode is good or bad. This is just me recapping the episodes, making a summarizing, So next is 11B, Strudel the Unfriendly Ghost, aired on October 2, 1999. So in this episode, Strudel pretends to be a ghost after SpongeBob and Patrick think he's dead. So basically, yeah, SpongeBob and Patrick think he's dead. Strudel builds this, sculpture of him. This sculpture of him, SpongeBob and Patrick hit it, and this sculpture, this clay sculpture, it melts. And SpongeBob and Patrick think they killed him, and SpongeBob and Patrick think that they killed him. And then when Strudel comes out of the bathtub, he has like this ghost. Yeah, he comes out with a ghosted design when he comes out of the bathtub with the steam there. And SpongeBob and Patrick think that he's a ghost, trying to thirst them because he's dead. And Strudel does take advantage of that by having them serve him. And then SpongeBob and Patrick learn that they should bury the dead. So basically, they just kind of try to bury him. And Strudel explains that he's still alive, but SpongeBob and Patrick still don't believe him. And they have him being teased in a bubble and goes up in space, and and that's how the episode ends. So not to space, but like at least to the surface, and that's how the episode ends with SpongeBob Patrick still thinking that he's dead. So yeah. Next is 12A, The Chaperone, aired on March 8, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob takes Pearl to the prom. So in this episode, basically Pearl tries because she doesn't have a date to the prom. SpongeBob promises to take her up, and SpongeBob has a fancy tuxedo and makes up these long legs. And he goes with Pearl to the dance. But then he needs to have it a little bit. They do stuff, and they try to dance, and Pearl do the whole lifting their legs dance, which kinda injures everyone, and then they take them out on lighting it. But Pearl still had a lot of fun doing it. So yeah. So yeah, this was a really nice, episode of SpongeBob and not Patrick, Pearl, sorry, excuse me, Pearl, interacting. So yeah, and there's this really funny scene in the end where it turns out that the SpongeBob that he went with Pearl was just a dummy, or it was a dummy, and the real SpongeBob comes in and takes the dummy, which is really funny in my opinion. So yeah. Next is 12B, Employee of the Month, aired on March 8, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob and Strudel compete for the Employee of the Month award. Basically, this episode starts with, SpongeBob having, employee. In the Employee of the Month award, SpongeBob, has like this threat of him winning for like 25 times in a row, every month, Employee of the Month. But then Strudel gets jealous that he wants like one time, but SpongeBob cannot let that happen, so he basically tries to make Strudel late by destroying his alarm clocks. And then, Strudel actually kinda wants to be, so SpongeBob persists on it. Strudel kinda wants for like not caring about the Employee of the Month to just kinda wanting to be it, so to need it. So basically, they try to throw by each other. And when it's time for the word, they turn at the trusty trap toward, and then they try to set traps for each other, and then in the end they just basically run to the trusty trap. They took patties and they made the destruction, and they yell at traps. Oh, who's employee of the month? Who's employee of the month and stuff. So yeah, so this was funny. Next is 13A, Scaredy Pants, aired on October 28, 1999. In this episode, SpongeBob becomes a ghost for Halloween. So basically, SpongeBob is tired for being like the scaredy pants. Everyone is staring SpongeBob away, and SpongeBob isn't happy about that. So he basically tries to make himself look like a ghost by basically shedding his sponges, and he basically becomes like this ghost, and he tries to haunt everyone. But then Patrick gets stunned by the jellyfish. Now, in the beginning, not a lot of people were terrified, but then, but then on the night, SpongeBob, he's the ghost. He tries to come up there, scaring everyone, and then, and then, and then everyone is terrified until Patrick gets stunned by the jellyfish, and it's revealed that it's SpongeBob. But then SpongeBob pretends to be the actual the Flying Dutchman. But then the actual Flying Dutchman appears. So the Flying Dutchman, he's the most iconic ghost in SpongeBob, ghost character in SpongeBob. He shows up and telling SpongeBob that he's not scary. But then when he removes the mask of SpongeBob, he becomes scared, and everyone becomes scared because it's basically just SpongeBob with a brain. Because basically it's bodiless SpongeBob, just with his brain and his organs. Just with his brain, eyes, and mouth, which does look creepy, not gonna lie, and everyone just becomes scared of it. So yeah, which is really funny. Next we got is 13B, I Was a Teenage Daddy, aired October 28, 1999. SpongeBob leaves Daddy in the terrace Squidward, and when he gets back, he transforms into a snail after accidentally being injected with snail plasma. So basically in this episode, they do this fun fact. This episode marked the first time card in the SpongeBob series. There are like time cards in like the SpongeBob show and like SpongeBob episodes. Certain episodes do have time cards where the one with the French narrator, the one with the French narrator narrates it with 3 days later, 2 months later, 13 hours later, 1 day and a half later, one trip through the skies later, stuff like that. So basically, this episode is the first to feature time cards, even though the French narrator doesn't say it this time. It was just like the 3 day. It's like 3 days later, but the French narrator doesn't say it because it's the first one. That's because it's the first one and they didn't have the idea yet. So, so basically. So basically, in this episode, SpongeBob had to go to this jellyfish convention. They go for 3 days, and SpongeBob leaves Terry's tear at Strudel's hands. But then Strudel, acts irresponsible and goes lays outside, relaxing while Daddy is starving on the inside. But then while SpongeBob, at the last moment, as SpongeBob turns bad, Squidward tries to feed Daddy, but Daddy is sick, and so they inject him with snail plasma. They try to inject him. So basically, the doctor comes and gives him the snail plasma, but then turns out, and they try to inject him, but Strudel injects SpongeBob instead. But then Daddy gets cured by just having water, and then while SpongeBob gets injected with the snail plasma, Strudel takes it back home, but then SpongeBob gets injected with it, and SpongeBob comes after SpongeBob, kind of like a horror movie thing where like he tries to assault Squidward. Not gonna lie, this episode kinda did have it creeping me out, mainly because of the music. The music kinda a little bit set out to be terrifying. I mean, as a kid, it does feel terrifying watching this episode. Not gonna lie, but as an adult, but like as somewhat of an adult, yeah, it's it's funny, I guess, yeah. And then Strudel, runs around the house and then makes a mess, and then Strudel himself gets injected and turns into a snail in the end. And the episode pretty much ends with, SpongeBob, Daddy, and Strudel, singing meow 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 until Strudel gets hit by Patrick's shoe. So yeah. Let's say that is 14A SB129, aired December 31, 1999. Strudel accidentally freezes himself to the future. So if you aren't aware, this episode has is gonna have a sequel, somewhat of a follow up in season 14, as you can see here, PL 1413, which is in season 14, but we'll get to that once we get to that. Anyway, SB129 is basically it's a Sunday morning. Strudel wakes up and SpongeBob and Patrick kinda they kind of show up, and Strudel escapes them by going to the trusty trap, and he kind of accidentally freezes himself there. He lets himself in the freezer, but he freezes himself, and then this one, this is a time tower 2,000 years later, and the French narrator actually narrates this one. So yeah, this is the first one where the French narrator narrates it. So basically, once he gets 2,000 years later, he meets Spongetron and Patron. He meets the Spongetron, which is like a descendant from the future who has like robotic elements to him, and Strudel sees how the future everything is covered with mold. Everything's like this hyper-realistic thing covered with mold, and he tries to do back, and then they introduce him to this time machine, and Strudel uses it, but he goes back to primitive time, to the past, where he meets primitive SpongeBob and Patrick, and he introduces them to jellyfishing. So basically, he introduces them to jellyfishing, but then they kind of, but then when Strudel plays his Telenet, they chase him off, and Strudel, ends up at the time machine, but then he ends up alone and tries to escape it, and falling into madness, but then he ends up in the time machine again, and comes back home, and where everything is normal. And then we did end with this joke of, SpongeBob Patrick telling Strudel that he created jellyfishing, which kinda doesn't make sense, because he did teach their ancestors. He literally just taught their ancestors how to jellyfish. So yeah, which is really funny. So next is 14B Karate Choppers, aired on December 31, 1999. SpongeBob and Sandy become obsessed with karate, which causes some problems. So basically, in this episode, SpongeBob and Sandy, they do some karate, and but SpongeBob becomes obsessed with it. Even at work, he kind of suspects Sandy being there, and he attacks some customers and whatnot. And then Mr. Krabs tells him that he shouldn't do karate, or else he's gonna get him fired. But then when SpongeBob throws out, Sandy does karate on him, which kind of ends him being fired when Mr. Krabs sees him. And so SpongeBob gets upset, but then he goes out with Sandy having a picnic, and then they do like the karate blast up with the Krabby Patties, and makes a bunch of Krabby Patties in the part. And when Mr. Krabs sees it, he takes this to his advantage, and then have them basically just doing karate, preparing food for the customers. I'm sorry if I'm speaking fast here. I want to end the stream just quickly, because I want to go eat. So basically, so I'm gonna speak a little quickly here. So yeah, this episode very much ends with them making telepathies, and then And then there's this funny part where SpongeBob says, "I love karate." Mr. Krabs says, "I love money," and Strudel says, "I hate everybody." Yeah. Next is 15A, Sleepy Time, aired on January 17, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob visits the dreams of others. So in this episode, SpongeBob dreams. He dreams of having his driver's license, but Mrs. Puff takes away, which causes his consciousness to go out. Let's see, did it turn off? Or okay, can we continue things now? Okay, if it's still on, okay, I'll continue. Okay, next, let's just continue. I'll do just season one, and I'll end the stream. Okay, so let's continue doing these last few episodes. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance here. My computer just turned off for a moment. And I'm charging it right now, so um yeah, I'm charging it right now. So yeah, I'm just gonna do only the last few episodes, of season one, and I'm gonna end the stream because I wanna eat. So let's continue. So next we got is episode 15A, Sleepy Time. So basically, SpongeBob's consciousness, he goes to others, and he goes to their dreams, and he experiences their dreams for the first time. So the episode is basically SpongeBob going to their dreams. He goes into Daddy's dream. Daddy is like this librarian who owns a bookstore, and SpongeBob, and he tells him to do, and he tells him about dreams, and then he goes to Pat's dream. Pat's dream is just him riding a seahorse. And he goes to Strudel's dream, him being a comedian, and Strudel is just a talent show artist, running for a team who would have him executed. And then he goes to Sandy's dream, which is about her falling off of a plane landing on Texas doing extreme sports. Then he goes to Mr. Krabs' dream, where it's about Mr. Krabs' dream is basically about him. Mr. Krabs' dream is basically about him going on a fish on some money, and Pearl's dream is about him. Pearl throwing a tea party. Then Plankton's dream is about him taking over the world as giant plankton. But in the end, SpongeBob goes back to his dream and is confronted by everyone, because everyone is mad at SpongeBob for going into his dream until Patrick shows up asking everyone for a penny. So yeah. Alright, next is 15B Sods, aired on January 17, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob catches the sods after leaving his refrigerator open. So in this episode, basically, SpongeBob on the night he eats jellyfish jam. He eats like jellyfish, jam on like the toaster, and he leaves his refrigerator open, which freezes his house, and he gets sick with the suds, and so he has to stay at home and take care. And Patrick impersonates being a doctor. And Patrick impersonates being a doctor, and so he tries to like cure SpongeBob in some ways. And then Sandy comes. She confronts Patrick about it. They try to take SpongeBob, but SpongeBob dishes his suds on a trusty trap. But then after taking him to the doctor, SpongeBob gets cured of his suds, and it happens. And then Patrick just kinda that's what he does. After impersonating for a doctor, and then he just kinda that Patrick pretended to be sick because they gave SpongeBob a lollipop in the end, and Patrick wants it, so he just kind of does that and does through the procedures, but it kind of pains him a little bit. So yeah. Next we got the 16A Valentine's Day, aired on February 14, 2000. In this episode, SpongeBob and Sandy try to give Patrick a Valentine's Day gift at the carnival. So in this episode, It's basically the festival of Valentine's Day, and SpongeBob tries to celebrate it with his friend. He tries to give Patrick a gift for it, and then they go to the carnival. They try to launch a surprise birthday with Sandy giving Patrick the gift of a hot air balloon chocolate, of a chocolate hot air balloon. And SpongeBob is surprising Patrick to the gift, but Patrick kind of gets impatient, and SpongeBob tries to distract him and tells him that the gift is handshake, but then Patrick gets upset and let's have it in the carnival, only for Sandy to come in with the chocolate hot air balloon, giving Patrick an actual gift. So yeah, and that's how the episode ends. So yeah. Let's read out the 16B The Paper, aired on February 14, 2000. In this episode, SpongeBob plays with a bubblegum wrapper, and Strud wants it after seeing how much fun it is. So basically, in this episode, Strud, eats a bubblegum and throws the wrapper away, but SpongeBob plays with it and does all sorts of fun things with it. But then Strudward gets distracted. Strudward gets distracted by it. And so, he tries to convince SpongeBob to give it to him after multiple attempts, but then after multiple attempts of giving him, the paper, but then, it doesn't work anymore. The paper doesn't work anymore with him, and, Strudel gets upset, having sold his entire life for the paper and whatnot, so, basically it ends with him just being in the void. Patrick throwing the wrapper away and just him being in the void. So yeah, next result is 17AR, aired on March 15, 2000. After being inspired by board games, Mr. Traps takes SpongeBob and Patrick to go on a treasure hunt. So in this episode, Mr. Traps plays with SpongeBob and Patrick a board game of pirates, and then they stay up all the night until they get tired and SpongeBob and Patrick go back home. But then after being inspired by the board game, Mr. Traps comes the other day, recruiting SpongeBob and Patrick to go on the treasure hunt to find the Flying Dutchman's treasure. So basically they go on this treasure hunt, and they find Mr. Traps having the map. They take a look at it and they find that it's just the same as the board game, and Mr. Traps only wants the treasure for himself, because he's greedy. And then when they find the Dutchman's treasure, Mr. Traps wants it all for himself, but SpongeBob tries to share it with him, only for the Flying Dutchman to wake up and giving them 2 doubloons for finding the treasure. Mr. Traps tells that SpongeBob Patrick found the treasure so that he doesn't because he thought that the Flying Dutchman is gonna curse him or whatnot. But then the Flying Dutchman actually rewards SpongeBob Patrick with 2 doubloons, and rewards Mr. Traps is just a plastic treasure. So yeah, and the episode just ends like that. So yeah. Next is 17B, Rock Bottom, aired on March 15, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob gets stuck in the Rock Bottom after taking the wrong bus home. So basically, once they finish Love World, SpongeBob and Patrick take the bus, but then SpongeBob, goes down and gets stuck in the Rock Bottom, which is like this area that's filled with darkness. It's like an area below the trench of Bikini Bottom, and it's filled with darkness. And it's like filled with like darkness and whatnot. And so, SpongeBob gets trapped in there, and he tries to get the bus home, but the bus, always kinda, doesn't show up. And there's this whole funny scene where when SpongeBob goes away, the bus comes, but then it just goes away when he tries to catch it. And SpongeBob is left there, and this episode is pretty dark in certain areas. It's kind of creepy. It does have this whole settling vibe of being lost somewhere and trying to get back home, some place you don't know, and trying to get back home, because I've actually encountered with that experience. It's a funny story. Just no, not a funny story, but it's kind of a sad story. It's pretty relatable to me, because there was a time I actually took a wrong bus, and I ended up somewhere else, and was very upset, but then I found my solution out. But man, it was just upset, with those 2 hours there. Anyway, I'm not gonna get too personal here, but yeah, this episode is pretty relatable for people, experiencing the issue of, taking their own bus and being lost somewhere. And, SpongeBob gets home by someone tying him with a balloon, and then And then SpongeBob floats away back to the Bikini Bottom, and then he finally arrives with Patrick being on the bus for some reason. So yeah. Next is 18A Texas, aired on March 22, 2000. So in this episode, Sandy feels homesick and wants to return to Texas. So basically, this episode, basically has Sandy returning to Texas, after feeling homesick and thinking about it, and SpongeBob and Patrick wants to prevent it by telling Texas that, that it's dumb and whatnot. Texas, as you know, is a state in the United States of America, and Sandy wants to go back there, and and SpongeBob and Patrick tries to convince Sandy not to go back there and whatnot, and then they kind of made fun of Texas, they kind of made fun of Texas and whatnot, and calling it dumb and all that sorts, and then Sandy gets mad and tries to capture them, but then it turns out everyone was planning, a goodbye party with Sandy, to the point where Sandy actually feels home there, and feels home there and actually, decides to stay there in Bikini Bottom with her friends and family. So yeah, not family, but with her friends. So next is 18B Walking Small, aired on March 22, 2000. So this episode, Plankton tricks SpongeBob into becoming assertive so he can build his mega butthead. So on the beach, Plankton wants to build his mega butthead, and there's SpongeBob there, and SpongeBob and Plankton, but Plankton has a lot of company, and he wants to bring these people out. So basically, he goes to SpongeBob and tricks him into being assertive and mean, and pushing people away from him, and basically, SpongeBob succeeds in that. But then SpongeBob realizes that it was just a trick for Plankton to build his meta bucket in there, and so basically, SpongeBob brings all of this back, and Plankton just leaves there, and everyone has fun. Yeah, that's basically what I could remember from this episode. But yeah, it was really fun. Next is 19A Fools in April, premiered on April 1, 2000. So in this episode, Screwdad is fed up over SpongeBob's lighting of April Fools Day and decides to play a nasty prank on him. So basically, this episode starts with, it's April Fools, and SpongeBob, does all sorts of pranks and whatnot, and Screwdad, that's fed up with all of his pranks. There's also the whole, joke of, one ice cube with Tom. SpongeBob keeps on laughing at it, and basically the episode just kinda, and then basically SpongeBob that's laughing and whatnot. Screwdad that's fed up over it, and he tries to set up a trap for SpongeBob, and then he traps him and has them roll in his trap and humiliating him. But then everyone boos at Screwdad, and Screwdad feels bad, and he tries to apologize, which is really cool. And Screwdad in the end finally says sorry, and then everyone kinda displays a full sprint on him in the end, which kinda leaves Screwdad, in a hurry, in kind of a crazy mood. So yeah. Next is 19B Neptune Spatula, premiered on April 1, 2000. So in this episode, SpongeBob pulls the golden spatula from the trees and must prove to Team Neptune that he is royal frighted material. So in this episode, basically, when they're in the museum, SpongeBob pulls out the golden spatula, and then Team Neptune comes with the prophecy of him trying to beast out, royalty. Neptune proving that he's a royal frighted. Neptune is showing himself as a royal frighted, as he's this big egotistical man. But then, when SpongeBob pulls the actual golden spatula, proving that he's a royal frighted, Neptune kinda laughs and, mocks SpongeBob for because he thinks that SpongeBob doesn't have what it takes. And so they do a contest, this contest, and Neptune has to prove himself that he's a better frighted than SpongeBob. And then he tries to do all the magic, and Neptune tries to do all the magic, preparing like 1,000 Krabby Patties, and he prepares like 1,000 Krabby Patties, and SpongeBob takes his time preparing only one. But then when Neptune offers it to everyone, everyone just hates it because it's manufactured and blech. But then SpongeBob makes this one Krabby Patty, Neptune tastes it, and it's amazing. Neptune loves it, and then he hires SpongeBob to play frighted with him and join him in his royal frighted highness, leaving all his friends alone. But then SpongeBob has a better idea by just having the trusty trap, him running the trusty trap, whereas Neptune is just the frighted, and he basically does it with love and not with magic. So yeah. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then we also got, jokes of Patrick having his face on his butt. Neptune testing Patrick having his face on his butt instead, which is kind of funny. Next is 20A Hootie, aired on February 23, 2001. So in this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick play with hoods. So basically, Mr. Krabs wants everyone of hoods, of the hoods, the fisherman hoods, because then it turned into tuna sauce, and the stuff, the fishermen's, they fish for fishes and turn them into tuna sauces and whatnot. But then SpongeBob and Patrick play with these hoods until Mr. Krabs touches them and warns them not to do so. And then when Patrick keeps on playing with them, SpongeBob plays with one, but then he gets stuck with it and he tries to have Mr. Krabs help him, and then he kinda rips his, and then what he has to do is just that he had to rip his pants, and he had to rip his underwear, and then he goes back culminated, kinda in front of the girls, which is pretty embarrassing. Which is kinda embarrassing, and then he tells back home, and it turns out that the fish was just made by Scrooge just to teach SpongeBob a lesson. It was just to teach SpongeBob a lesson, and Patrick just becomes a tuna sauce in the end. So that's basically how it ends. So yeah. Next is 20B, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, aired on March 3, 2001. So in this episode, SpongeBob wins a conch shell in a contest to summon his heroes. So basically in a contest, SpongeBob, he wins the magic conch shell, and the magic conch shell is a gift to SpongeBob where he can summon both Merman and Barnacle Boy whenever he's in danger, but SpongeBob keeps on summoning them for trivial stuff like repairing his house, or making him massage and taking him bath, which kind of settles them both. And then when Merman and Barnacle Boy think that he's in grave danger, it turns out that he's actually just wanting them to open the mayonnaise. Barnacle Boy gets upset, he tries to destroy it, but then instead they have SpongeBob that's recruited with them, trying to stop some evil people. Then they encounter the Flounder guy, but then he's retired. But then in the end, Merman Barnacle Boy gets captured by the dirty bubble, and SpongeBob manages to free them with his pencil that pops the dirty bubble, and frees Merman Barnacle Boy, and then they just come back home, being friends all together with his heroes. So yeah, this was really fun. So yeah, overall this was season 1 of SpongeBob. It was a really fun recapping this. And that's gonna end for this team session. I might continue tomorrow or some other time. But for now, we'll end it here. So thank you all for watching this recap, and I hope to see you all for next time. So goodbye everyone, and have a good day everyone. Peace out. Goodbye.